Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. On a radio talk show today, I was asked if Vladimir Putin would have invaded Ukraine if my former boss, President Donald Trump, were still in office. Absolutely not, was my immediate response. Putin would have done it. Why? Because the minute Trump saw 150,000 troops massing on the east side of the Ukraine, Trump would have called Putin and rattled his cage. That's right, rattled his cage. Know what I mean by that? I believe the former president would have said to Putin, you pull a stunt like invading Ukraine, and we will wipe your economy off the map. Immediately. We're energy independent. We're a net energy exporter, he'd say. We don't need your energy and gas, and we're going to shut you down. Immediately. Instead of holding back on sanctions and letting Putin call the shots, as President Biden did, Trump would have taken actions right away. If his phone conversation wasn't satisfactory, he'd have gone into action. Boom. Immediate sanctions to the central bank. Immediate sanctions on commercial bank. Immediate sanctions on Russia oil companies. No carve-outs, no waiting time, no nothing. Action. That's the kind of president Trump was. He'd say, get him on the phone, and then he'd read Putin the Riot Act. Listen to what the president said about Putin over the weekend.
But with respect to what's going on now, it would have been so easy for me to stop this travesty from happening. He understood me, and he understood that I didn't play games. This would not have happened.
There you have it. Wouldn't have played games. Remember, Trump is a guy who bombed Syria while he and Chinese President Xi were having chocolate cake dessert in a Mar-a-Lago meeting in late 2017. Remember that? Remember one night Trump took out the Iranian terrorist Qasem Soleimani? Soleimani was the cutthroat killer. He was financing Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda. Trump just took him out. He didn't ask permission from 15 multilateral global institutions. He just took action. Better to be feared than loved, Machiavelli taught us 500 years ago, and Trump was feared. Remember, Trump dropped the mother of all bombs on ISIS-K in Afghanistan back in 2017? Remember, Trump just walked across the North Korean DMZ line fearlessly. Remember how many trips Trump made down to the U.S.-Mexican border? And finally, remember that the U.S. became energy independent during the Trump years. If Trump were still president in 2021, when Putin started his troop buildup on the Ukraine border, the U.S. would still have been energy independent. Post-pandemic, Trump would have exhorted America's fossil fuel business to get back over 13 million barrels per day on the way to 14 and then 15. That would have kept oil prices down around $40 or $50 a barrel, and that would have prevented all of Putin's wartime financing profits from the increase in oil prices that were nurtured by Biden's anti-fossil fuel jihad. Trump would have made good on the Keystone Pipeline and ANWR. Trump's FERC would not have frozen energy leases on federal lands. Trump's SEC and Federal Reserve would not be harassing fossil fuel companies about red tape or withholding bank credit. There would have been no radical left climate people in a Trump administration. You know, Trump proposed an all-of-the-above energy policy, which is what Senator Manchin advocated on this show late last night. Take a listen.
And I'm just in a different place than my caucus or the colleagues or the president, and they have a hard time coming to grips that you've got to use everything you've got. You've got to use your gas, you've got to use your coal, you've got to use your oil, and you have to develop wind and solar and hydro and geothermal and hydrogen, all these things I'm for.
Yep, fossil fuels, renewable energy, nuclear energy, that's a common sense policy. But Joe Biden's war against fossil fuels has enabled Vladimir Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. Sky-high prices financed Putin's war machine. Biden's too little, too late, leading from behind sanctions diplomacy, and the fact that he's neither loved nor feared at home or abroad. Here's one more thing about Donald Trump that he never would have done. A new Iranian nuclear deal. In fact, it was Trump who walked away from the old, ineffectual Iranian deal. Now, this is an astonishing, breaking story. In the middle of this Ukrainian crisis, U.S. diplomats are maybe hours away from providing $11 billion of assistance to Iran as part of a new appeasement deal with that terrorist country. I can't believe it. Let's not forget, Iran is aligned with Moscow. Is that what we want? Iran lies, cheats, steals. Iran won't let UN inspectors in to inspect. Iran closing in on a nuclear bomb. And Biden is about to fork over $11 billion, allegedly for the release of 4 American hostages, to provide a nuclear bomb to one of the world's most evil regimes? Really? That's something else Donald Trump would never have done, ever. We will talk about it all this evening. That's my riff.